Hey there, Scott here from Social Energy Presents, and we'd like to thank you for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe to support this and other great content. Our guest today is Sarah Smith, a Canadian singer-songwriter known for her intimate and authentic music style. On stage, Sarah is a force of nature, seemingly transitioning from calm to ferocious and from fierce to loving. With a quarter century of being one of the hardest working roots rockers on the circuit, her music has earned critical acclaim and a dedicated fan base across Canada, the United States, and Europe. Throughout her career, Sarah has shared the stage with many renowned artists, including Melissa Etheridge, Nancy Wilson, K.T. Tunstall, and many more. As a recording artist, Sarah skillfully expresses the breadth of the human experience, offering an unforgettable and life-affirming connection through her music. Her evocative solo albums, including Stronger Now, The Journey, and The Unveiling, and including her new album, Come Together, are resonating with the growing audience base, showcasing her growth as an artist. And today, Sarah joins us from her home in beautiful British Columbia for a look back at her career and to bring us up to speed on what she's working on next. So sit back, relax, and get ready, as Social Energy now presents you with your Backstage Pass.
So, I just wanted to talk to you. I don't have anything planned for this interview because I just figured we could just wrap. There's like you and I have sort of worked together on a professional level. We know each other a little bit, just from talking on the phone and that sort of thing. But I just wanted to ask you just a whole bunch of questions about your process. One of the things that drew me to you for this interview was just how you're such a hard worker, and you're the epitome of what it should be for an indie artist to make it in this world.
Thanks. I mean, definitely a hard worker.
You really are a hard worker. You bust your butt every day, and that's what it takes. It's not like, here, I've written a song, come and get me.
Well, you get taught work ethic, I think. And I grew up on a farm, and we were taught teamwork and work ethic. If we didn't work as a team, we wouldn't have got anything done around the farm. There was the house cleaning, the house chores, there was the barn chores, there was, just the day-to-day taking care of a farm. And I was fortunate enough to be my dad's farmhand. I was the one in the family out of 4 children that really enjoyed working with him. So, music to me, if it looks like I work hard, it's nothing compared to how I used to work on the farm.
So where was the farm? Where were you born?
I was born in Guelph, Ontario.
Okay.
And the farm was just down the road in Arthur, Ontario.
Yeah. And how big was it?
It was not that big. It was a hobby farm. My dad worked at the University of Guelph in the vet college region with the animals themselves, and then he would come home and we had this hobby farm. So we had chickens, and we had some goats at one point. We had lots of pigs, 52 acres of crop as well.
That's a big hobby farm. Holy smokes!
Yeah, we ran it like it was extra cash for my parents. I remember selling chickens out of the back of the truck at church.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, like. It was definitely a part of our family.
So you were a church family too?
Yeah, definitely a church family.
What faith?
We were like Christian Protestants. So we started out in Presbyterian church, and then we went to United Church. And then near the end of my teenage years, my mom got really into the church, and she started going to some Pentecostal evangelical type churches, and I kind of.
Wow.
I really enjoyed the passion behind all that stuff, and I enjoyed the theatricals and that kind of thing, but it scared me a bit, so I backed away a bit at that point.
Yeah, I sort of feel the same way. It's interesting though, because I was born and raised a Catholic until
right.
And practiced it. My mother died when I was in grade 4. And after that, the family just sort of stopped going to church. Not the immediate family. I have much older brothers and sisters and that sort of thing. But the ones that were left at home, because when my mom died, there was still my sister at home, and who practically raised me. She was about 10 years older than me, and she was sort of stuck with the chore of raising me because my much older sister was 20 years older than me.
Whoa.
And, yeah. And so she was born, when I was born, she was already taking nursing and well on her way. You know, she used to bring me to, she used to take me to school as basically as a subject, you know, as a baby, you know, and apparently I was quite advanced as a baby, but probably because I had so many brothers and sisters, you know, edging me on. But I guess apparently one of the things that used to be is all babies do this at this point in their life, except Mick, who did it a month earlier. You know, that became part of the curriculum as a joke, I guess. But yeah, but
so you've always been a bit ahead of the game.
well, I wouldn't say that, but I was definitely, I had lots of older brothers and sisters. I had lots of parents, you know, really. There was seven kids in the family. And my mom and dad, my mom worked. So I had a housekeeper. I remember being a very young infant, like 2 and 3 years old, and a housekeeper would come in the morning because the kids would go to school. My mom would go to work. My dad would be at work. And then when the kids came home from school, they would look after me. And especially my sister got, you know, stuck with that chore. But shortly, so by the time my mother died, it was just my brother Kenny, my brother Jimmy, me, my dad, and my sister Lydia. And my sister Lydia moved out about, gosh, I think within, I'm going to say probably within, my mom died June 7th. I think my sister Lydia moved out within 2 weeks of that.
Oh, wow. That must have been tough for you guys. So you guys had to sort of, the
Well,
boys club.
Well, I found out like she was my mentor. She was the one that did everything in the family for me. She helped me with my schoolwork. I was always a grade A student. I was always at the top of my class, and it's because, you know, she aspired to be a teacher, I guess. So, but yeah. Anyway, enough of that. So let's get back. So you were born near Guelph or in Guelph, I guess, and just down the street, and you had your hobby farm. So how long did your parents, how long did they have the farm for?
They had the farm up until only about 5 to 10 years ago. They sold their farm and moved into another country home, and then now they're living in a retirement community outside of Guelph.
Oh, wow!
Yeah.
And so when do your parents play music?
So yeah, you know, church was a big part of the music for me. Church. My mom was the choir director. And she also was a soloist, and she had this beautiful operatic voice. And she would use it all the time in church. You know, when the congregation was singing, you could always hear my mom on the top singing away the Jesus songs, and she just loved them. And my dad would be beside me like, oh, just sort of humming away.
Yeah.
But my mom was this church singer. My dad was a country guitar player. And he always sang at parties. We called him Eeyore whenever he would have a few drinks and start playing. And
why Eeyore?
Just he kind of slowed down a bit, and he was always kind of jaded, and so we called him Eeyore. And he played like Johnny Cash and Kenny Rogers, and you know, The Gambler was a big hit in our household. Right. So yeah, music was a huge part of our life. And my mom and dad put us in music lessons. All of us started piano as soon as we were maybe 4 or 5. And I eventually, you know, I got away from reading the music. I got to about like grade 4 or 5 in conservatory. And then I would be following the music for the first few bars, and then I would just make it all up. I would just make up my own songs. And the piano teacher said, you know, like to my mom, you know, she's really good at what she does, but I can't really teach her much anymore because she's not following the book. And it was then that I realized that I actually could write music. And I dug into those piano books, and I did everything I could to find those little squares at the top of the piano notes that had little fingerings on them. Mm-hmm. And that was guitar chords.
Right.
And so then I would sneak away and get my dad's guitar, and I would teach myself these guitar chords. And on top of that, one last thing, my mom, she worked at a school as a secretary. And in the summer and on holidays, she would bring home the school drum kit. Oh. And so I got to play drums. And all through public school and high school, I was the school drummer.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, piano, drums, and guitar and vocals, of course, were were my thing.
So music was your obsession. How was your schoolwork? Were you good at school?
A+, yep, top of the class.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And sports too. I was really into sports. I was just an all-rounded like go-getter from a young age.
Wow. Wow.
Mm.
It definitely shows in what you're doing now. You know, it's true. You know, I know what I was going to say. We were brought up the Presbyterian thing, and I remember I went to a Catholic school till about grade 8, but I remember seeing the kids. I went to a school called Canadian Martyrs, and you could see down the laneway all the kids that be walking up to Greenwood School, which was the school, public school. And I remember it's weird how this sort of mentality, churches can be so bad for this, because I remember us kids looking at the kids walking up to the public school and thinking, oh, those are the kids that are going to go to hell.
There's a lot of them.
No, because they're not Catholic.
Yeah.
Like
wow.
how awful, to even have that thought, I guess that's probably why I am the way I am now. But
meanwhile,
anyway.
you guys were making out behind the bushes and doing all sorts of bad sins.
Oh, yeah. Well, the one thing I learned about the Catholic religion is that the rules are there to be broken. I don't think
right.
I don't know anybody in the Catholic Church, unless they're really, really hardcore, and that there's very few of those that actually follow the rules. The rules are there just as rules. They're not meant to be kept, I think. Yeah.
Anyway. Something, I kind of always look at life that way a little bit until I realize that sometimes rules are very important, and there's some rules that we must follow or destruction will happen. So I was always a rule breaker until I realized that, if everybody is a rule breaker, how are we ever going to have society, and how are we ever going to have flow? So I try to just
you can't have anarchy, that's for sure. Anarchy doesn't work, no matter how. There's people out there that believe they want anarchy, but I think if they had true anarchy, they'd want structure back very quickly.
Yeah, I'm a structure person, I realized.
Probably. So when you get up in the morning, you have your things. Even now, you probably get up early in the morning and you do your things. You walk your dogs, you all this sort of thing.
Yep.
You have 2 dogs or 3?
I have 2 dogs, but we also have a third dog that pretty much lives here as well. So we have a small, medium, large. Well, her name is Bambi, and she's one of our friends' dogs. And we have another property here as well. We have like a cottage on our property, so that's where they live. And Bambi and Carolina are best friends, so they go everywhere together. And then we have Braun. He's an older boy, and he's 7. And he's a big boy, but he runs the roost, really. Yeah, I walk them every day, and it's when I'm home. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Well, you live on Pender.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never been there, but it looks like such a beautiful place. But because you're from Ontario, I'm sort of going to be skipping all over the place here, but what made you move to Pender Island from Ontario? What was that all about?
Oh man, like sometimes, you just go with the flow. That's what happened here. Like Leslie and I got an opportunity to run someone's Airbnb, a friend of ours Airbnb in Souk during the pandemic. And we thought, we've always wanted to move west. Why not give it a shot? I knew I had to sort of restart my band anyway during the pandemic. One of the band members had decided he didn't want to tour anymore. And I thought, this is a good time to just restart things. I've always wanted to live out west. I was going to wait till retirement, but why not? So we moved to Souk. We ran this Airbnb while the pandemic had everything shut down. I did a lot of recording in that house.
So you moved to Souk what year? In 2020?
Yes, 2020.
So it wasn't all that long after that me and you touched base.
That's right. So while I was in Souk, I was there for 3 months, and Leslie and I came over to Pender Island just on a weekend retreat, and we bought our house here. It's the moment we stepped foot on this island, I said, this is home. There's something here. I don't know why we moved here, but we're here.
And no regrets.
No regrets.
Yeah.
No
regrets. It looks beautiful. I see pictures and videos all the time, and it looks wonderful. Maybe Kelly and I'll have to head over there one day and see what it's all about.
It's a gorgeous place. It's a bit of you get used to the pains in the butt traveling, you know, that it's fairy life, fairies for everything. But that's sort of the charm of it as well. I enjoy slowing down, just waiting.
Are you guys off grid at all?
No, we tried that before we got here. We were working on a school bus. We were demoing a school bus. We were making a tiny home, and we had everything demoed. We had worked very hard on it for a couple months, and we realized that that wasn't really for us. Like,
I guess what I meant by off grid is, are you using any sort of alternative energy?
yeah, no,
Okay.
no. We like the actual power and lights and stuff.
Well, I found out a few months back that a neighbor 2 houses over sells he sells solar shingles for houses.
That is cool. Like we really want to, but you know, we're newly here and we've had to invest in other things. Like we put heat pumps in all of our buildings. So 3 different heat pump systems. That's also
God.
air conditioning. So that's an energy thing that we've done, a change. Windows, you know, one thing at a time.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, heat pumps alone are not inexpensive.
No, that one's we're gonna be paying that off for a while.
Yeah, I remember when I went to Italy with Kelly, and I remember that was the first time I'd seen heat pumps, and at the time I thought they were kind of old-fashioned looking things.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they were actually the best of the best. I remember seeing them going, that looks kind of old-fashioned. That's old Europe sort of thing, not realizing it was actually better technology than we had, you know.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, so you've getting back to it. So your dad played guitar, your mom sang in the choir. She was the choir director. She sang beautifully. Your dad sang the country. You learned how to play guitar by picking out the little chord symbols in your piano books.
Yeah.
And basically, and watching your dad, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then
he taught me 3 chords. He taught me C, F, G.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. My brother Kenny was already playing guitar. He had a guitar that he bought for $17 from Kmart.
Wow.
A K guitar. He actually helped build the Kmart in Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh.
Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh my God! Cool shirt. That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, he bought the $17 K guitar. He learned how to play, etc., etc. But I remember one day he was playing that song by the Trogs. I feel it in my fingers. I feel it in my toes. You know, love is all around. And he was playing this song, and I'm watching him. And he left the house. So I put my fingers where his fingers were, and the only chord I couldn't figure out was the E minor. For some reason, the E minor.
That's the easiest chord.
I know, but it stumped me. And so he came home, and I said, "Can you help me with something?" And I played the song. I said, "Who taught you that?" I said, "You did." He said, "What?" So at that point, he thought I was a protege, right? So right away. So my second song that he taught me had bar chords in it, and the strings on the guitar were like this high off the neck. I was like, you know, but yeah,
I didn't learn bar chords until 9 years in. You know, I was so naive with guitar playing. I'd only taught myself that, you know, I was playing. I had went to New Zealand on a student exchange when I was 18. And I was playing my guitar, and a string broke, and I cried and cried. I thought, "Oh my God, my guitar is done.
My career's over."
And I didn't know you could. You know, you're supposed to change your strings, and that they're supposed to break. And so, yeah, that was new to me. That was 4 years in. Still hadn't changed the string.
Here's an interesting story. My high school in Sault Ste. Marie, Boarding, years and years later, of course, a friend I went to school with was a teacher there, and they had this beautiful 1973 Fender Precision bass that when we were kids, we used to polish it and all that stuff. We looked after it, you know. But so we walk into the music room. It was during exam time, so the school was semi shut down. And we're walking around. So he said, "You want to go to the music room?" I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." So we go to the music room, and he says, "You want to see something that'll break your heart?" And he brings me in this back room, opens up the case, and it's ripped apart. And there's protractors through it and holes through the body. And oh my God, it was just terrible. And I said, "Well, you know, I said, I got an endorsement from Peavey. I'll get you guys a brand new Peavey bass if you give me this one." And talk to the faculty. So they talked to the faculty, and they said, "Sure, he can have the bass." And they never did ask me for the Peavey bass, so I got it for nothing. But I brought it back to Vancouver, and it was a 1973 jazz precision, or precision bass, pardon me.
Oh,
And Dave Reimer put it back together, and he put 1973 Rotosound strings on it.
oh,
And because he said those years had the best alloys. So whenever he finds them coming through his shop, he sort of saves them for his muso friends, right? Like this
wow.
So anyway, so that bass has been, I've had it since 2004. And so it's still got 1973 Rotosound strings on it. And you talk about breaking a string and your career's over. That bass sounds incredible. I generally only use it in the studio. Only used it for a handful of gigs live because I want to sort of, it means something to me.
Yeah.
And plus, if I break a string, I'll lose my sound.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
I know, but it's wonderful. It's got all the round sound without that annoying oink that new strings can have.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of new strings myself.
Yeah,
I'm, as a full-time musician, I probably use less gear than most musicians in the world. I don't know. I'm not a gear person. I'm very I even buy cheap stuff. Like I don't care about my gear. I care about it. I have good basic gear, but I don't go crazy about what kind of strings I'm going to put on or whatever. Like if I get given a pack of strings, I'm like, that's the best kind of strings. Free,
Well, I hear you. I went into Long McQuaid. I had to change some strings. Well, when I was working on your album, I just changed some strings on my guitar. And I said, what do you got? He says, well, you want to get what we put on our guitars? I said, yep. And he gave me, it was like the cheapest acoustic strings. That's what they put on the guitars. That's what people go to Long McQuaid, at least the Long McQuaid near my home, they're not playing these $20, $25 acoustic strings on a Martin. They're using the in-store strings that are like $7.99 a package.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I mean, why strings are strings? When I remember, I worked in a music store for a small period of time, and I found out that almost all string manufacturers, almost all strings are made by 3 manufacturers in the world.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it all comes out of the same factories, So
yeah, do you ever buy those ones that come in bulk? Like you can get the E string and you can get the A string, and they're just like in a big pile of bulk strings.
Well, I just had to buy. It's funny you mentioned that. I just had to buy 3. Oh my gosh, I got a notification on my screen behind me. Look at that. Oh, I know why too. I was going to say, I had 3 sets of strings, and I'd gone through the 10s, the lightest string. So I had to go buy 3 bulk strings to make it up. It was the first time I bought like bulk strings in a while. When did you start performing with your guitar, let's say by yourself or with a band or that sort of thing? How old would you have been?
I did lots of performances from the age of 5 on.
With the guitar?
In church. No, in church and theaters and in drumming in my school and everything like that. But when I went to New Zealand, when I was on that student exchange, I was
when you were 18, you said?
Yeah, 17, right. 18. Before I went there, I made my own original tape. I made 6 songs. I have those songs, by the way. I just listened to them. I sound like a chipmunk. My voice is so high. Anyway, I made 6 songs, and I sold enough tapes at this concert to pay for my way on the student exchange. I sold 1,000 tapes, like over the while of me fundraising and trying to get these tapes out there. 1,000 tapes.
Wow.
I know. That's crazy.
And you just recorded them at home or what?
No, I went into a full-on studio in Shelburne, which, listening back, it's really a funny recording. You have to hear it. It doesn't sound professional at all, but for the time, that was I was so nervous. Oh. I remember being in the studio with this actual real producer and singing my songs and strumming, and I think he tried to put me to a click track, which was not happening, and I just played and sang. And listening back, you can feel the emotion in my voice. It almost makes me cry listening to it. One of the songs is called Jesus Wept.
You found your Jesus, he was there watching you breathe. Inhale, hold it, exhale, it was deep, sore-throated and hell. You coughed out loud.
Another song is called "You Came Back to Me," and that was a song I wrote because I broke up with my boyfriend, and then right away I took it back. I said, "No, I want you to come back," and he said, "No."
It took courage to ask you back out, to come in my life once again. I never knew that I'd hurt you so bad. I never knew the pain I'd put you in.
And so that song was like just yearning for my boyfriend to come back to me, and he never did. But anyway, yeah. So that was like my first time, and then in New Zealand, I started performing a lot for people. I started performing a lot and getting some really positive feedback and encouragement.
Performing where? Like at parties or at,
yeah, parties, and
like
never.
living room concert type of things?
Yep, just like little parties, garage parties, little outdoor bonfires, that kind of thing. I was still pretty old for just starting to get out there with my music. And then when I was in the military right out of high school, and I was with
the military.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Tell me that part.
Well, I went to Royal Military College, which is the university in Canada. They pay your way. They give you a diploma for free. You just have to be in the military.
Right.
So I thought, though, this is pretty cool. You get paid to go to university.
Right.
And I really enjoyed that whole idea. And on top of that, they really go for well-rounded people. Like they want you to be in sports, and they want you to be able to have a job, and they want you to be able to have good grades. And
well, you ticked all the boxes.
Yeah, and I had just seen G.I. Jane, and I was like, man, I'm in. Like, this is my life.
You didn't shave your head, did you?
Well, I did later. I'll tell you about that too. But
oh, you did. Oh, wow.
Later after the military, I went mohawky.
Oh, did you?
Complete shaved sides of the head. Anyway, so while I was in the military, I was also dating this gentleman, and he had a band, and I kind of worked my way in there a little bit and started singing with him and playing with him. So he was the lead singer, and I was just his bitch, really. And as we were playing, like, I hate to say this, but people started saying, why don't you get Sarah to sing more? You know, we want to hear her more. And it started to sort of become apparent that they wanted to hear more of my voice. So then we changed our direction, and I married this gentleman, and we became a band called Big on Venus. And that was with Bill Durst on guitar. You know Bill Durst?
No, I don't.
Do you remember Thundermug?
Yeah, of course.
Bill Durst is the lead singer and songwriter of Thundermug.
Oh, see, I never knew the members. I remember Thundermug coming through Sault Ste. Marie when I was a kid.
Yeah. So Bill was like, you know, an older gentleman but really great songwriter, and he took me under his wing, and we built this band up together with my husband at the time and him and a drummer, and we started playing music. And this was actually just to go back, my officer in the military, he told me after my first year in, he said, hey, you really should just do some music. You should get out while you can and do music. And I did.
He said that.
He said that.
So he was a fan, or he saw where your heart actually lied, or both?
He saw that my heart was sensitive, and that he heard me playing. Like I had my guitar with me in my room, and in order to have it in my room, I had to lay it out for inspection every day, the same as I would my underwear and my uniform. Right. You know, I had to lay it out there. So he saw my dedication to having my guitar there, and every spare minute I had, I would be playing guitar and singing. And he was the one. I don't even know his name. I don't remember what he looked like, but he was that angel that said, hey, you should quit now while you can and do music.
Now, were you able to get your diploma?
No, I quit after the first year. So after the first year, you have an out. It's like, if you quit now, you don't have to pay any money back, and you can get out for free. If you continue after your first year, and then if you quit during those years, you have to repay your tuition back. So it was sort of like the in-between phase. I was like, do I stay or do I go? And it was apparent that I wasn't meant to be there. And as soon the day I got out, I started the band with my husband at the time and with Bill, and we just started doing 3-part harmonies, writing music. I have all those old recordings too.
Hold me tight. Tell me everything's alright. I am.
Wow. Wow. So, I mean, it's so the thing is, this drive of yours has been apparent from the time you were a little girl. Like you were born with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no two ways about it. I mean, that's, and your parents were obviously driven people as well, it would seem.
Yeah, more on a small scale. Like they were just family people, very family oriented. But you know, my mom had us in all sorts of activities, and she would be driving us all over the place. 4 kids, full-time job, and also activities on the side. She was the choir director, and she also put on operettas with the kids in the church. And my dad was like, you know, a farmer. He would get up at 5 in the morning, 4:45. He would work all day at the university, come home, work at the farm. It was, very dedicated and consistent.
What do your siblings do?
I have really great siblings, actually. My brother lives in Florida. He's the oldest, 7 years older, and he runs his own company. He makes shade. He lives in, like, for Florida people, you know, like actual. Oh, no, sorry, he does lawn furniture now, outdoor furniture. That's what he does.
Oh, by shade, you meant like awnings?
Yeah, he did that for a long time, like awnings in parks and stuff. But now he's doing patio furniture and industrial furniture for outdoors.
What does he sells it? Manufactures it? Both? Or
both. It's his own business with his wife. They're in it together.
All right. Well,
it's pretty cool.
There's part of the family drive again.
Yep. And then my older sister, she's in HR, very high up HR with a nonprofit. And my younger sister is in pharmaceuticals, and she's like managing a team of 25 or something like that. She's very successful too.
Holy smokes. So you've got a spread of 7 years, and then an older sister is what, 5 years?
5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And then your other sister's what, 2 years younger?
Yeah.
Wow. That's quite a handful. But
yeah,
I have to hand it to your parents, though. You obviously come from really good stock.
You know, they're not like, they're very simple folk. They're simple people, but they really taught us what love was. You know, we might not have learned, I didn't even know you could do music as a career. Like, we didn't learn culture, art. We didn't know any of that stuff. We just learned about love. They were great parents. Yeah.
Well, what a nice thing to hear. That's fantastic. Okay, so let's move on. That's a really good story, sir. Really, it was fantastic. So you started as soon as you got out of the military college, you started a band with your then husband, and what was his name from Thundermug?
Bill Durst.
And Bill Durst. And so you start that, and you started playing almost immediately. You were writing, recording, that sort of thing.
Right away. Yep, right away. We released a little album. I think it had 6 songs on it. And then, you know, Bill was like, I was so eager, right? I wanted to make a living with music. So I was booking us up like 5 nights a week. Right. You know, I went nuts with booking shows. And he was like, you know what, guys, like you're really young and eager, and I just don't want to do this like this. So we started our own band called Pop Joy. And Pop Joy was, we did cover songs of 80s songs, and we put 4 on the floor beats to everything. 4 on the floor, just fun, high energy. I got this massive mohawk, and we just jumped up and down and did these cover songs, and we released like a few albums with that. And
what covers would you have been doing then? Like
AC/DC songs.
Okay.
We did AC/DC. We did I'm Your Venus, I'm Your Fire, what's your desire?
Right.
I think we're alone now. Doesn't seem to be. And it would be all like
everything,
harmonies.
Boom, boom.
Yes.
It was like one long EP. Yeah.
It was. Some of the sets were just one huge medley.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, that's what DJs do to keep the dance floor going.
That's what we did, and that was what we did. So anyway, my husband at the time and we broke up, and I went off on my own and continued with Pop Joy. and we started writing original music. And it was sort of this like ska reggae type stuff, which was really, really great music. Some of those early tunes, I just love them. And eventually we became a little more rock. So we changed the name to The Joys.
I feel empty, I feel dead. What's all this ringing in my head? I gotta be to work by night. I'm making a living, but I'm not living a life.
And now your voice has a real edge to it. Like I realize you've just been in Germany, and you were doing a Janis Joplin part of a show there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I want to get into that later. But has your voice always had that edge to it?
Yeah, I think it was because when I was a kid, I was very sick. I was a sickly kid. I was allergic to milk, and that's all I pretty much drank was milk. And so I had bronchitis all the time and asthma. And I would be coughing and coughing, and I always had this sort of rasp to it. And I think I just coughed myself into a rasp. I know. And so I've always had this sort of raspiness. I mean, in my younger recordings, you'll hear a very pure, clear, sultry little voice, but that didn't last very long, especially in my work ethic. I just wanted to play all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember some of those ski resort gigs, Mick, when you could smoke in the pubs. So we would be there. We would play every night, 3 to 4 sets, and then matinees on the weekends, and no breaks. And it would just all be smoke everywhere. And, you know, how are you ever supposed to not get raspy?
Mm-hmm. I know. I used to blow my voice out all the time. I'm playing 6 nights a week in a smoky club, and not to mention the asbestos. But you know, you see the stage lights, and you can see things drifting down from the ceiling. You know.
I know. I remember breathing in all sorts of shit, and on top of that, like my band, we would be jumping up and down and working out the whole time, like just sweat pouring off us and breathing in all this cigarette. Ugh. And I smoked and I drank.
Yeah.
You know?
Me too. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't enough that I was breathing all that crap. I had to add to it.
Yeah.
But I remember that when we first got lights, professional lights in my band Shama, and I remember looking over at Jeff Neal while he was singing, and I could see smoke coming out of his mouth while he was singing. And you know, it's like it was you wouldn't see that until you got like a 1,000-watt par light, and all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, this place is full of cigarette smoke, and we're breathing it in and out.
Don't you miss par lights? I loved sweating. I used to love just getting so hot and drenched in sweat. Like that was like my favorite thing, because I felt like I was working out.
Yeah. Well, it certainly made a difference in my life. It kept me slimmer and trimmer, that's for sure. But I don't miss moving those things around. It's like nowadays you can get a PA system that'll fit into the back of an SUV that really is better and more efficient than these great big Altec A7 cabinets and 2560 JBL stuff and all that. God, the stuff we used to have to have a 5-ton truck to move stuff around that you could get the same sound and look now putting in the back of an SUV.
Jeez.
Almost, not quite.
Wow.
But anyway, so now this was all in Ontario.
Yeah, but we got onto the university circuit. So with Pop Joy and the Joys, we got to travel around Canada playing all the universities and colleges.
Okay, how did you get into the university circuit?
COCA. It's a showcase of all the universities and colleges. They all bring out their representatives, and they do a showcase every year.
So you went out and you auditioned essentially, and
yes,
and they say, okay, we like that band, we're going to hire them. Yeah.
Right.
They do things. I've never done one of those, but I've heard that I think they have probably 2 or 3 a year out in the Vancouver area for buyers and stuff, I think. So
yeah, sometimes it works out. I mean, it's a tough game being a full-time musician, because you need to make a career, you need to make a living, but then you also need to invest in your career and pay into things. Mm-hmm. So it's a balancing act of what do I put my money towards and what will it bring back for me?
Yeah.
what can I make from it?
Do I buy a hard drive or do I buy groceries? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially. Wow. That's incredible. So now, uh, when did you branch out? Like, how long did the band last before you became more or less? I mean, you've always had a band, but I look at you as a solo artist more than having a band. If you have a band, it's basically sidemen with your, it's a Sarah Smith band.
Right. So, the Joys went for 10 years, and we were done in 2011. And we really just were going to take a break because honestly, we had gotten into the partying and we were all just, our lives were starting to crumble and we were just like we had worked so much. We were on the road all the time and our relationships were failing and, our souls were dying and we thought we better take a break. So we took a break, and in the meantime, I had been playing this Wednesday night gig in Brantford every Wednesday. It ended up going on for 9 years, but I think I had been playing it for about 2 or 3 years at that point. I never missed a Wednesday. Every Wednesday, I would be playing this gig. And I was starting to get my own solo fan base going. And so I recorded a little solo live album off that stage right away with some, like I think 14 original songs. And it took off. People loved it. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just keep going as a solo artist. It was the scariest moment of my life. I didn't think I could move along without my band. But as a solo artist, I did me and a drummer. It was always a duo, just me on acoustic, bassy sort of acoustic I always mixed the drums really bassy too. So we had like this nice warm bassy duo. And then eventually I met producer Kevin Doyle. And Kevin took me under his wing and he said, let's get you an album. And we applied for a grant and we got a grant, and he helped me, he sent me to LA to do some songwriting with some people, and he got me my first real full length solo album. And from there I put a band together and traveled with the band for forever after that.
So how many albums have you actually put out?
So I did 2 of these live albums, just solo live albums with a drummer. And then I did
and you just released them off the floor, like no overdubs after or anything?
No.
Okay.
So Stronger Now, The Journey, 11, Christmas, Unveiling, and then I did like a COVID album, and I did another live album. And then I did this new album, Come Together. Right. So like about 10. Yeah. And a bunch of singles and stuff too. Yeah. Oh, and the Sarah Smith and the Lovers of London. That was one of my COVID projects as well.
Oh, okay. And so there's just so much to talk about. How did you end up working overseas?
That's a funny story too.
Because you got a pretty good following over in Europe.
I have an awesome bunch of people that I've met over there that have become family. Like one of the couples is staying in my cottage right now, actually. They came from Germany for a visit, and we've been showing them around Pender Island. And we've been able to welcome a lot of Germans over here, actually, and some Netherlands people too. Anyway, so how that happened was, London, Ontario, it's a small city. It's 400,000 people. And I was becoming sort of a household name in London for just working so hard and playing all the shows I did. And word got out to the Stewarts, Kenny and Ian Stewart and Colin Stewart. They were 3 brothers from London, Ontario. And 2 of the brothers, Kenny and Ian, they moved to Europe 20 years ago to do, like, Kenny played drums in Cats, and Ian played bass in Starlight. So they were doing theater musician stuff. And Kenny just kept hearing about this Sarah Smith. And he wrote me and he said, hey, I think it's time that you come to Europe. He said, I really think that we could do something here with you. Pretty cool, eh? Okay. So he sent my song, one of my songs, Into the Light. He sent that to Pat Anthony, who was a producer in Germany. And Pat liked what he heard, and he invited me to come work with him. So They
I was
flew me.
going to ask you how you got to work with Pat. So there you go. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So it all
So
parlays into the same story. That's good.
yeah. So that was 2013, pretty long time ago. So he flew me into Germany and he kind of put me in front of the microphone and he gave me this song and it was already written and this melody. And he was like, okay, sing this. And I was like, I'm going home. He said, well, what do you mean?
I sing what I want.
Yeah. I said, no, I'm not here to be Britney Spears. I'm here to be my own original music. And Pat was like, oh, okay, great. Let's write an album. So we wrote an album together. And from there, every year I would go and we would do more writing. We would tour as a duo. And then eventually I was
so Pat's actually played with you as well.
Yep.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay.
And then eventually Pat was like, I can't do this anymore. The way I work, it's just a lot. And he's like, I gotta do my own thing. And so I said, well, I think it's time I bring my band from Canada. So I was able to start bringing my band from Canada about 5 times now.
So there's bodies strewn behind you everywhere, isn't there? It's like this tour de force that is Sarah Smith and all these people just exhausted, falling off the wagon. Oh, I can't take it anymore.
Well, there's certain ways of the lifestyle that I've realized I have to live a certain lifestyle in order to keep up this pace. And if people don't live the lifestyle, they probably won't keep up.
And your lifestyle is? Let's get into that.
Well, for me, it's sobriety and clean and healthy eating and exercise and just like really treating my body like a temple. And yeah, I find that if I put substance in there, it just slows me down.
Is that a direct result of all the 11 years of touring where you guys were just imbibing a lot?
Yeah, I mean, that was like such a fun lifestyle. Like that, we had so much fun. We partied our way through Canada. It was a blast until it wasn't, until it became, for me, I can't speak for anybody else in the band, but for me, it became an addiction. And I was addicted to the adrenaline, and I was addicted to the drugs, and I was addicted to the alcohol and the party, and I was addicted to it all. And I was slowly inside just like dying. I was just becoming a shell. In order to get up in the morning, I would have to use. In order to go to bed, I would have to use. In order to get on stage, I would have to use. In order to, have a bowel movement, I would have to use, like everything.
You're like Elvis. Did you have to go through treatment?
I didn't go through treatment because when I first started playing music with Bill Durst, he was sober, and he told me, if you want to do music full time, you have to be sober. And so in the beginning, I was sober for 7 years and I didn't do anything. I was sober and I lived a clean life and I was really happy doing that. But so I had this base that I'd already done. I was in a recovery program those 7 years and I was learning all about recovery. And
are you talking about back in the beginning of your career?
Yes.
Well, why would you go through a recovery program when you don't have an addiction?
Back
then you didn't.
I would say I did. I was a party girl, drinker, and I would say that it was a mild addiction at that point, but it was probably an addiction.
Oh,
and
Bill, so he sort of kept you in check.
Yeah, and I went through the recovery program, AA, and I did it, and I did it went to meetings and stuff like that all the time through those whole 7 years. So I had that base. So after 10 years of partying and trying to get clean and sober, that whole time, I finally made the decision, I've had enough, I've hit my bottom, and I'm going to just do this. And I quit everything on the same day. I quit smoking, drugs, drinking. I quit sex even, because it was an issue as well. And I also quit meat. And I just said, fuck this, I'm done with it.
So you're a vegetarian?
Plant-based, yeah, as much as I can, even vegan, yeah.
Interesting. So, what was I going to say?
I'm also crazy, as you can see.
No, I certainly don't think that. That's interesting. So you were able to take what you'd learned those previous 7 years, you partied your face off, then use what you learned to just say, okay, I've had enough, and you became your own counselor.
Yep. And I went to recovery programs, and I went through the program. Actually, I really took it seriously for the first couple of years. I really dug in.
And this was back in Ontario?
Yeah. I became a really big part of the recovery community.
Oh, so you did do that. And that was after your 11 years of debauchery.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, like the moment that I decided I'd hit my bottom, it was a very pivotal moment for me because it was a CD release party. I was on the stage and I was fucked up. And I remember I was looking out in the audience and I could feel that they were looking through me and that all my vulnerable, you know, when you're on stage, you're so vulnerable, like people can judge you. And I was judging myself. I was like, what the fuck am I singing right now? What is coming out of my voice? It is not really authentic. I'm not the person I'm portraying myself to be. And I just felt like a fraud. And then after that night, they were having a party for me at my friend's house, like a celebration party. And I spent the first 3 hours in the van doing drugs, like by myself. I was just like completely holed up in the car. And that was where I just looked at myself and I said, if I want to continue doing this career, then this is it. This is the moment. I either choose to clean up my life or I choose destruction.
And obviously no regrets because your career's only gone up from there.
Yeah. I mean,
you're in total control.
To be honest, I really love the life of sobriety. It's not boring. It took a while for me to love it. It was shitty at first, but I really love it. I'm so grateful.
How long do you figure it felt shitty, as you say?
It was this time around. It took me a while to feel normal. Really, like over a year. Mm-hmm. Like even sometimes up to like 4 years for my dopamine levels to clear up again and to be able to be happy again. And it's not an easy process. It's not easy.
How long have you been sober now?
It's going on 7 years. It's not a lot, but it's very. I worked really hard this time to really truly find the problems and get through them and find happiness.
Well, I've been there in support of someone for meetings, NA and AA, and it's quite surprising how the one day at a time still strikes people after 24 years.
I mean, even me, like Mick, like if I'm on a holiday or something, it's very tempting to think, just have a glass of wine with dinner. So there's always that one day at a time for me because it still enters my brain.
A friend of mine, he actually just made a comment the other day about this same story that he told me probably 15 years ago. And it was about a friend of his that he hung out with. And then this guy got into real estate and stuff. And he became quite a drug addict and, you know, alcoholic and this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And of course, he sobered up. And what my friend was saying is like, it's like every time I see him, every time I talk to him, he goes, well, one day at a time. And he goes, come on, when's this going to be over one day at a time? What kind of crap is this? I went, really? You know, it is actually one day at a time for people for the rest of their lives. That's
the unfortunate thing I had to realize.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, it becomes your new, it becomes your Buddha. It becomes your religion. It becomes, you know, so really it's a daily affirmation. If you look at it that simply, it's really not this cross you're carrying so much as a commitment you've made. So,
right.
You know,
and also it does get way easier. There's many, many, many months, years that I never think about it. And I'm just like living a pretty gracious life. Yeah. Really. But there is the odd day where I'm like, oh, I got to check myself in again. Like I got to check into the ways of the program because I'm feeling tempted or whatever. But I know that I can't just have a glass of wine. Like I know that because I did that for so many years. I tried to just have a glass of wine, or I would try to have a couple drinks at a party or whatever. But eventually it just snowballs into destruction. So,
well, it's like when my first wife was pregnant with my son, Carmen, I quit smoking. And it was like, gosh, probably 8 years later, I'd say. Yeah, about 8 years later. And somebody had a cigarette. I said, hey, let me try one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that. At first, I just had a puff. Then I had a cigarette. And within 2 weeks, I was buying smokes. Within 2 weeks,
Yeah.
I was smoking again. And then it took me until, gosh, that was like, it was probably, let's see, it was about another 13 years before I could finally quit again.
Wow.
But when I quit,
Wow.
it's amazing what you can do with your brain. And I quit smoking, and within 2 weeks of quitting smoking, it was like I'd never smoked. Never had a craving, never thought about it again. But I realized in retrospect what I had done. Every time I would light up a cigarette, I would always look at it and go, that's a dried up leaf wrapped in paper. And I'm setting it on fire and sucking the smoke into my lungs. What part of this is good? I was sort of analyzing it logically.
Yeah.
And I think I sort of convinced myself. And plus, I don't think I was addicted. I think I was habitual. Because that was back when I first got my very first studio set up. And I know I would forget to smoke. I would be working for hours and hours going, oh, geez, I haven't had a cigarette.
Well, you're more addicted to music.
maybe that's what it is. Yeah. But yet my first wife, she passed away from lung cancer. And the thing is that she would wake up in the middle of the night to have a cigarette. That's the difference.
Right.
She would actually wake up to smoke.
Yeah.
I could go
seen
hours.
That.
I could go hours without it, and I'd forget to smoke.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, when I was doing it, I'd do a pack and a half a day. It was just
That's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty a lot. Yeah. I mean, you can't compare yourself to other people's addictions. You have to be the one. You're the only one in your own voice that can tell you the truth. And if you really truly listen to your inner voice, it will tell you. A lot of times people listen to the addiction. So the addiction tells you don't have a problem. But if we really truly listen to that God voice inside us, it will tell us the truth. Is this helping you or is this hindering you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just have to ask yourself the right questions. I came up with this thing yesterday. I think I made it up. And I was sort of posting. There was a post with my son, and he goes through challenges quite a bit in his life. But and I was talking about how I said use your whys, WHYS, wisely, because a lot of people go, why me?
Right.
Use your whys wisely. Wow, that makes sense. That's kind of a cool little catchphrase.
It is. There's this other one they say in recovery programs, which I like. I really like. Don't should on yourself.
Don't what?
Should on yourself.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Should have, would have, could have. For sure.
I should do this. I should do that. We should do this. Mm-hmm. Just do it or don't.
Yeah. Get off your own back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. Okay, let's back to the Sarah Smith career here. So so now you've worked over in Germany and you've gone back and forth. And so you and your husband split up and you met Leslie in London?
I met Leslie actually in Tobago. Well, Leslie was a fan of mine for years. She said that she came to lots of my shows and that we had met in the past, but I never really knew Leslie at all. And I didn't recognize her or anything. And we went...
Pardon my ignorance, where's Tobago?
Trinidad and Tobago.
That Tobago. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I was... I had just finally got the courage to walk away from my marriage, and it was very painful, but it had taken me lots of years to gain the courage to do so. Should I stay or should I go? It was a rough.
This is the same first marriage that you had, or
no? It was another marriage.
Oh, okay.
I was married I was with my partner for 14 years, my ex-partner.
Okay.
And I finally, got the courage to leave. And I stepped out of that marriage and I called my agent and I said, can you put me on a trip? Because I need to get out of here and just clear my head. And, I need to restart. But I also walked out with love in my heart, knowing that I was ready to love again. I was ready. I had worked through it all within my marriage. I worked through letting go and grieving, and I was ready to start again. But I just definitely wasn't going to go in a relationship. So when I got to Tobago, I found out that I had been paired up as a random roommate with this Leslie chick. She was my roommate on the trip. So
Wow.
yeah, we hit it off. We really got along. We hit it off really well. It was romantic. It was fun. We had a great time. We thought maybe it was just be a little fling that we had. And then we ended up enjoying each other's company, and we just we couldn't be without each other.
Right.
So
Now,
and from
and to clarify, what does Leslie do for a living?
she is a commercial banker.
Yeah. And so with commercial banking, she's able to do that on Pender?
Right. Yeah. She works remotely. She's just recently gotten a promotion where now she goes into work a couple days a week. She goes into town. And I think that's good.
Into town, you mean Victoria?
Sydney.
Sydney. Okay.
Sydney. Yeah. I think it's really good for her. I think she seems to be happy to get out of the house again and face to face with people, even though it's a pain in the butt to get off this island. You know, it's nice, I think, for her to be around people again. And plus, you know, on top of that, she also follows me everywhere and does all my merchandise for me at all my shows. And she drives me and she helps me and she feeds me. And she is like my personal assistant and my sweetheart and support system. And she's a real go-getter. She's a go-getter like I am. It works out pretty good.
That's good. Yeah, well, I really liked Leslie when I met her. You know, I thought, and really, I think, is that the only time we've all been in the same room together?
Yeah, I think
it's only been
so.
once. Yeah, it's only been once. It's weird because, you know, for people that don't know, Sarah and I worked, half of her album was done out of Germany, this latest album, Come Together, and the other half we did here, essentially. But Sarah's tracks were all done remotely. You'd go into a
Isn't that crazy? It's crazy.
But it was easy for me because you police yourself so well. And you would send me like 3 vocal tracks and say, okay, these are the ones I'm sending you, but this is the one I like.
Right.
You know, or this is the one you should probably use, which is great. It certainly makes my job easier. And the times that I tried to slip in a different one, you called me on it. So
I know my performances quite well. I have a good memory for what I fucked up on each track.
Yeah, I know, it's pretty funny.
Did you have to do a lot of vocal comps, or did you just mostly take like the full?
I usually would take just the full thing.
Wow.
I think I used comps in maybe 3 sections, and it was just areas where there was maybe a syllable crossover that sounded funny, and you know, just it was simple as pie doing your stuff. I mean, you always delivered me like we could explain. What's your story and how you and I first started working together? What's your side of that story?
Well, I think that I mean, how did it start?
Didn't you solicit? Okay, I'm gonna spark your memory. Didn't you solicit to your fan base saying if anybody out there has lyrics that they would like put to music?
Right. Then please, yeah, like during the pandemic, I needed work. And I thought, you know, this would be really cool to take people's lyrics and I can do the music portion of it. So give me your lyrics. I will write you a song with those lyrics. That was a job I did. I did it for $200 during the pandemic. Cheap. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people got these little demos from me with their music. But this one friend in particular, Brad Hawks, mm-hmm. he had sent me these lyrics for Meet Me at the Crossroads. And we ended up writing such a good song that Brad decided to invest a little more. And he hired you to mm-hmm. produce the song, mm-hmm. to fully produce it. So I sent you my guitar tracks and my vocals. Mm-hmm. And I remember Brad called me on the video. He goes, "Are you ready? You want to hear the song?" And he said, let's listen to the song. So together on video, we listened to the song. Both of us were crying because it was just so good. You produced it perfectly. Everything I heard in my brain came out in your brain through your fingers. Well,
there's definitely a synergy between the two of us, because it's so funny because whenever I do something with your song, like, you know, you'd send me a song and I go, okay, like I think I'm 2 songs I made a chord change that I thought might be in a better, but you never objected. You never said anything about them.
I loved the chord change. It was awesome.
Yeah. So, but I was, whatever I sent you, except for the marimba.
I didn't like the marimba.
No, you know what that was? The song was called Holiday, and I'm going, well, what represents a holiday? And I'm trying steel drum samples, and I'm trying marimba samples. And I went, let's see if this helps make it a holiday thing. And you wrote back and said, I love it. I'm trying to get my head around the marimba.
I loved all the other stuff, but the marimba, I was like, no, I don't know.
I know. And I went, yeah. I wasn't married to it either. I just went, let's throw it in there and see what the hell happens.
I love how that one came out though. Holiday, that one came out really cool.
It
with
really
the,
did turn out
the
well.
little slide guitar in the beginning.
And I kept the little kalimba, you playing with the kalimba from your original demo.
Yeah, ding, 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 ding. That was done with Stuart McClellan in his studio. My guitar player in my band here. Yeah. He and I got together for a day and recorded these 3 tunes, like kind of demos. And Stuart added a bunch of instruments, and I was really happy that you were able to use a couple of those instruments too.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, Stuart played that guitar part that I just loved on Angels. It was
bing, 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 bing.
Yeah, it's a wonderful intro. There's no way I could have played it better. And it was like, this I'm definitely keeping. It's a beautiful opening. It says everything about the song right in the first bar. It's a great part. I keep meaning to write him and just say, man, thanks. It was you did a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm surprised that we were so cohesive. Like, I'd send you on these tunes and you would come back. Sometimes you would change the feel of the tune a little bit, or the vibe, and I would have to re-sing it. But I always appreciate trying new things with my songs, and you never disappointed me, not once. Each song was superb.
Well, in all fairness, you were able to give me really solid maps. Like your templates were so solid. Like I remember, I think it was it Girl?
Good Girl?
Yeah, it was Good Girl. I think because you had just a rough demo, probably done on an iPhone or something, and and when you sent it to me and I listened to it all the way through, I was stick it in my session and go through it piece by piece and look at it and analyze it and stuff. And I said, is this a finished track? And I think that was the one where you said, yeah, I think it's finished. I went, okay. And I went, okay, so this is what she wants. This is what she wants for a bridge and all that stuff. And then when you re-sang it, and I said this to you before, man, I failed you. And it's because when you sang it, you actually brought down the bridge section. You brought down the last verse. And was that in Good Girl? Yes, it was. And you brought it down, and yet I had the track plow right through it. And I knew you brought it down. I was listening to it going, she brought it down. And I don't know why I didn't do it in the first place, because you said, is there any way you could bring down the third verse? And I went, damn, like, because I'd actually thought that, and I was really ashamed of myself for not doing it. But it sure turned out well.
Yeah, it turned out perfectly well. Beautiful song. That one made me cry for sure.
I know you said that. Yeah, I thought, well, that if I make you cry, I'm doing a good job, I guess. So
that's our job in life, to make people cry.
Exactly. I want to ask you how. Well, here's a good question. You went to Trinidad. How does that happen? You had an agent. Did you phone up an agent and said, can I go to Trinidad? And they said, sure. And they sent you there. How does that work?
I've been very, very lucky to have met some really great people along the way, of course. Dawn Fairbanks is one of them, and Wendy Scott. Both of them were our travel agents that I've worked with that have put me on with, Caribbean shows and a week-long blues tour. Myself and a few other artists from the area would get together, and we would sing and play down there, and we would get our fans to join us.
You're going to have to help me with this. You said travel agents? Are you talking about agents that book on travel shows? I'm not. Or do you actually mean
they're travel agents.
They're travel agents, but they know about these cruises that have music on them, and they actually pitch you to those cruises.
Well, they just created a whole package around me. So it wasn't about pitching me to the cruises. They just made it happen. They would put together, like, say, the one cruise was a Sarah Smith cruise. And so they just, there was, I think, 50 of my fans and myself, and we went there and I played little shows once a day on different stages of the cruise. It was pretty awesome. And then another one was,
And it was just you performing the whole time?
Yep. Me and my bass player at the time. Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And then another one.
Impressive.
Yeah. Another one. Don has taken us to Roatan, Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago, Mexico, Watoko. We're actually using her as our wedding this year. We're going to Mayan Riviera, Mexico. So last year where did we go? It was really nice. Planet Hollywood in Costa Rica. Mm. So she uses me. She puts together these music packages with a couple other artists, and then all our fans join us.
Wow.
It's pretty awesome.
Wow. Now that's something. Now there's another person that's creating things that don't exist.
Exactly. And she makes a living doing it as well.
Wow. That's absolutely fantastic. Which brings me to this. Shortly after I started working with you, shortly after we did Meet Me at the Crossroads, I heard that you were doing this Melissa Etheridge boat tour. How did that come apart? I was like, you were voted like a fan favorite thing, or how did that work?
A pure luck thing where votes actually worked. Because, I think that you and I both know a lot of things are already in place before people vote. They just use people's votings to get more traffic to their websites or whatever, right? So I never expect to win anything that's voting related. I don't. I expect to lose. And if I win, I'm freaking blown away. So this Melissa Etheridge thing, I do manifest success. So I do always picture myself winning, but I also let myself know that it's not, sometimes it's a setup. The wins are set up. They just really are. Well, so with this Melissa Etheridge thing, it was like a voting situation, and all my fans got on board. They all voted, which they had done before. We had a whole project going called Sarah on Ellen. And we had a hashtag Sarah on Ellen, and everybody had sent in these videos, and we're hashtagging Sarah on Ellen. I swear there was 100 videos of people saying that they wanted me on Ellen, and they did this professional video for her and all this stuff. And I never got on Ellen. Mm. And so the fans were a little bit disjointed. And I think this gave them an opportunity this is something else that's really big that we could really win. And they all went for it. They voted me on, and I won. I got on the Melissa Etheridge cruise.
Wow.
It was incredible.
My daughter, before she passed away, she was down in LA, and it was just after Ellen came out on her show.
Oh, one sec, we have some dogs here. Hey. Okay, we're good.
And it was just after Ellen came out on her show. Now my daughter wasn't gay, but she was at this restaurant, and she was standing waiting for a bathroom, and who pulls up beside her is Ellen DeGeneres, and she's waiting for the bathroom too. And they start,
wow.
And my daughter just looks at her and she goes, "You rock," you know that.
Oh wow!
And so Ellen, she said Ellen was amazing. She said she started making jokes about the bathroom and all that stuff, and she said my daughter said I was laughing hysterically, and she was such a nice person.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. Anyway, that's my Ellen story. But yeah, so what was that boat cruise like? Did it give you a leg up on anything, you think?
I don't know. I met a couple of really great new people in my life that have become fans of my music and also friends. I got to hang out with one of the other artists that won that cruise opportunity too. Her name was Christy Lene. And she actually spent some time here on Pender with us.
Oh, good.
And we also we went camping at the Gorge Amphitheater a couple of weeks ago, and we saw Brandy Carlisle and Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, I saw your post on Facebook. You really loved that show, didn't you?
Oh, life-changing.
Really?
But those people that we camped with were people we met on the cruise. Mm. And then we also got to meet another couple at the show that we met on the cruise as well. Leslie, it was like she was on fire, man. Like when I'm performing, I don't know about you, Mick, but when I'm on the road, am a bit lame. I do my shows, I connect with everybody, I chat, I sell some CDs, I go to bed. Like that's my daily routine. Leslie, on the other hand, she was up for the evenings. So she would be mingling with everybody and having some drinks with everybody and getting to know everybody. And it was because of her, I think, that we had such a great turnout at my shows.
Well, she's your representative, essentially.
She is, which could be good and could be bad. No, she's wonderful. But she's a social butterfly, so it's good.
Yeah, well, let's see, you need that. I know that I'm not the type of person that can walk in. My wife says this isn't true, but I see myself as a person that I can't walk into a situation and start a conversation about, like that promotes me. The drummer in my band, Mark LaFrance, is fantastic at that. He can start talking about everything he's doing under the sun and make it interesting for people immediately.
Oh, I don't like doing it. I hate being a self-promoter. I hate it. I hate it with a vengeance.
It's hard. We all have to do it. In a way, we're both doing it right now, of course. But
I would prefer to, like, when I talk to people, I prefer asking them what they're about. Like, what is your story? Tell me. And I like to learn from other people, and the conversation always gets turned around to me, and I don't like that. I know it's partly because I've lived a life as an artist, and a lot of people are curious about that lifestyle. But I just want everybody else to tell me what I get enough attention. I want to hear what you're all about.
I really, really identify with that. I really do, because that's my MO as well. And here's an offshoot of that. How many times have we seen incredibly rich, successful people saying they would drop everything to do what we do for a living?
Yeah. I don't know if they would, though. I don't know if they would.
No, they would want their life back within a week.
Exactly. It's a lot. It's a lot of sacrifice doing art as a living. But in the other way, like I've said this a few times recently, I mean, I love what I do to the point where it's hard not to become addicted to what I do. I love it so much, and it's hard to have a balance. Like, as our partners, I'm sure our partners have a hard time being with us. It's just, we're so obsessed.
Well, Kelly worked in the medical field. Her whole life was one big structure. She's never been able to figure out, like, that I don't know what I'm going to make next week,
Oh my God, no kidding. And try getting groceries for the week. Try getting, like, that's hard too, because you never know where you're going. Like, we get free food. That's one perk of our life, right? We get free food. So whenever trying to
when there's a buffet, man, we're the first people in line.
Yeah, exactly.
This not working for a living is a lot of work.
It's true. It
really is. Yeah. It is an incredible sacrifice, and you never really know what's going to happen next. And most people can't do that. They just can't, real estate people do that. They don't know where their next check's going to come from. I
think for us, I'm sorry, we have had to put our trust in the universe. Mm-hmm. And I always tell people this that have quit their job, their structured job, and they're doing art. I always will say, and it is the truth. It's never let me down. If you're doing a life of art, you will always be taken care of. Mm. You will always have a roof over your head, and food in your stomach. And if you don't, if you ask for help, you will get it.
Interesting. Yeah. People have always asked me, so what are you going to do when you retire? I said, well, people retire to do what they want. I already do what I want.
Exactly.
Why would I retire? That just seems like a death, a death bell to me. This is what makes me get up in the morning.
Yes. I haven't had a lot of people say, like, limiting thoughts to me, but I am in my mid-40s now, and people have said things like, well, what are you going to do when you don't go on the road anymore? I'm like, I don't think I'll not.
I work with Randy Bachman. He'll be 80 this year, and he's still going on the road all the time.
That's what we do.
Because that's what he does. Absolutely. There was one question somebody asked Randy years ago when I first started working with him. I've been with him for 22 years now. And when somebody asked him, what would you be doing if you weren't a successful singer-songwriter? He says, I guess I'd be an unsuccessful singer-songwriter.
It's true.
You know, I mean, the best answer ever. Because it's true. I mean, this has been my dream since I was like 12 or 13 years old, you know? As soon as I picked up a guitar, or when I got my first band at 13 or 14, or when I played my first bar at 15, you know, I knew this is what I wanted for the rest of my life. My dad let me quit. He let me quit high school. I don't even have my grade 10.
That's awesome.
Well, not really. I should have been an A student like you and milked the cows, but I didn't. So,
well, you know, we all can't be amazing.
yeah, you got me there.
No, I've been a failure in my life, and I've been a success, and I'm just like, I am trying to just love all sides.
Yeah, well, you're a really good person. That's one thing I learned about you very quickly, is that you're just a really good person. You're not in any way a shyster. You're not all about you. You're just all about hard work. You're all about doing what you love. You're all about delivering it to people. You're all about making people smile. All that stuff. You're doing everything for the right reasons, Sarah. I really, really admire your whole, you know, aura, for lack of a better term.
Wow, thank you.
You project all the right things, you know. And I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful to our friend Brad Hawks for bringing me and you together. You know, because
me too.
It was him. I'd worked sporadically with Brad. He's a percussionist drummer, and I'd worked with him. And he phoned me one day. He says, "I've got this song, and with Sarah Smith, and I'd never heard of you." And I said, he said, "Would you produce?" I said, "Well, let's give it a listen." You know, and so I think he sent me. I guess I don't know if you sent it directly to me. Maybe you did. And it was, I think it was a couple of tracks of your guitar and maybe one track of your voice. I think. No, it was just one track of guitar, one track of voice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, wow. I mean, even that's the thing, is that hearing your guitar, hearing your rhythm, and wonderful. You mentioned that earlier. You played drums for a time. You understand groove. And you play very, very well to a click, by the way. You do. You play.
Thank you.
Well, because you're not rigid, and you're in and out of that click, but perfectly. You know, the click is there just as a template. It's not there as your. It's not a rigid thing in your music. You play with the click and make the click. You make it natural sounding. Anyway, so I remember when I just hearing that song, I went, I can hear where this is going. Right away. As soon as I heard your guitar and your voice, well, they say that's the best songs too. Is the songs you can play on an acoustic guitar and sing, and everybody gets it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it was easy to add what I felt the song. The only thing we did with this album from the original Crossroads is I added backup vocals on.
Mm-hmm. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Stuart played some lap steel on that live the other day on Meet Me at the Crossroads.
Oh, cool.
At one of our shows. Yeah, it was beautiful. You do play lap steel on it, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe the lap steel I use. You'll laugh your head off. Here, I'll grab it for you. It was given to me by a friend of mine. I have no idea what this thing is.
Cool.
And this is what it looks like.
Oh my God. No way.
Yeah, it's
wow.
It's
cool.
It's called an artist. And the thing is, this is the tone control. This is a volume control. The tone control,
wow.
I have to keep the tone control all the way off all the time because this pickup buzzes so bad. You can't get rid of the buzz. So it's amazing that I get anything out of this thing at all.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway. See, you're like me. Free is better.
Yeah, that's true. Free is always good.
Yeah.
You know, but you do respect things you pay for, though.
Yes.
More.
Yes. I just got a new guitar. I've had the same guitar pretty much my whole adult life, and it was smushed in an airplane.
Wow.
And so I got a new guitar. The airline bought me a new guitar, and pretty happy with this brand new guitar. It's still a work in progress because I like to mold things and make them mine. But it's kind of nice having this brand new expensive guitar.
I got to show you something else.
Show and tell.
Yeah, this is show and tell. But this is, remember I told you about this?
Oh, the red guitar.
Yeah, but what
Beautiful.
this guitar is really special to me. I've only played it live once, but I think that they're the coolest things on earth. And the reason why I have this guitar, I lost my brother last year, and he was the one who basically was my musical mentor. He was a bass player primarily for most of his career. But when I first started playing guitar, he, for some reason, ended up playing guitar in a band, but he didn't own one. So somebody lent him a guitar exactly the same as this. This is a 1965 Baldwin guitar. And so this is the very first electric guitar I ever played in my entire life, was one of these.
Wow.
Because he had it at home.
Right.
So I found this in Nashville, and I brought it back home, and it was basically an homage to my brother. And that's why I thought, well, this would be such a cool guitar for Sarah to play in her videos.
So cool. So was your brother's name Ken?
Ken, yeah.
Kenny?
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Kenny.
Yeah.
Had a lot of Kennys in my life that have shown me the way. It's pretty cool.
This has been a great interview. I learned a lot about you today that I had no clue.
Yeah.
And I wish you the greatest of success. For anybody out there, Sarah's latest album is Come Together, which, and tell everybody about that album, because it's kind of an interesting concept you put together.
Yeah, I had these beautiful songs that I had written and recorded with Pat Anthony and from Germany, and I had these beautiful songs that you and I were working on, Mick Delavie in Canada, and I thought, is there any way we can meld these two genres, like these two production styles, the German production and the Canadian production, and meld it into one? Because this is really me. I am a part of many different facets, and I wanted to, show the world these two different massive facets, the Canadian production and the German production. And I wanted it to meld into one. And that's exactly what we did with this album, Come Together. I've had a lot of comments, and you know something, Mick? A lot of people can't hear the production difference like you and I can. They just hear the voice.
Yes, exactly. Me and you are both Beatle fans. Like, we can ascertain that. And if you listen to the White Album, every song is like a different band is playing it.
Totally.
What glues it together is the voices. And that's the thing about, like, nowadays when you do an album, like my drums are always set up here, the microphones are always on them, they're always ready to go. But the Beatles, they would mic up the drums, and then the next song they go, okay, let's mic them up. We did that last time. So they would never mic up songs for an album. Every song was, the drums are mic'd differently. They were put in a different part of the room. So everything was a new sound. And I think that's one of the things that brought joy to everybody with their albums, was the diversity. And this is what you've presented here.
18 tracks, 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's one sort of rogue track in there from my friend Tim Steinruck, and he's from Vancouver. And I wanted to add that one because Tim is just like, he's become a bit of a spiritual mentor to me, and I wanted to include him as well.
Tim and I know more of each other than we know each other. We have met, but we're mutual friends to so many people, and it was interesting to see that you and him. So how did you meet up with Tim? How did that happen?
I met Tim through Rise Up TV. I've been involved in this process where they put a bunch of artists in a bus together, and we travel around, and they're doing a documentary. It's a work in progress documentary. I've been doing it for about 7 years now. But the documentary hasn't really been released yet. So we just keep filming all these episodes and all these tours. And Tim and I were on the Vancouver Island tour together.
Mm-hmm. And you guys connected on a spiritual level, I guess.
Yeah, Tim is a walking guru, really. He's a great guy. I love him very much, and he's taught me a lot.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell that you feel very close to him. which is a wonderful thing. And I know he's a wonderful guy because a lot of people speak very highly of him, and he's an immense talent himself.
He can sing and write and play, and he's a great performer. And yeah, on this Rise Up TV tour, we got to perform some songs together and got to hang together.
You guys must have sang well together.
It's, you know what? There's a secret little thing going to come out soon. It's one of his songs, and we did a duo or a duet. And I think it sounds world class. I think it's amazing.
Oh, I bet. I could hear you two singing together, and it would be pretty magical. It would be a really good matchup for sure.
Yeah, he's got the real growl, and I've got like this sort of soft growl. And it kind of works.
Yeah, well, you got that edginess in your voice. You got, sort of, I don't know, almost not quite as much, but a bit of a Melissa Etheridge sort of tinge to your voice. Like it's a voice that's been worked a lot. And that's that's a very appealing sound. I mean, I remember we used to refer to it as a whiskey throat. I remember we used to hear the old Bob Seger albums, and he had this incredible range, but he always had that grit as well. I mean,
totally.
You listen to Bob Seger songs like old time rock and roll. It's not low. It's not a low song to sing. Those notes are up there, but his voice is so gritty, it doesn't sound like it's that high until you try to sing it.
Exactly.
Incredible. But anyway, Sarah, this has been a joy. You're a joy. I love working with you. Hope we can do some more stuff soon. And thank you for this interview. And as I can't say enough about you. I'm a big fan from the get-go. So
thank you so much, Mick, and thanks again for bringing my songs to life. And I can't wait for people to take a listen. And if you're a CD listener, I'll have CDs very soon, rather than online.
Great. Okay. Well, have a great day, and get back to your doggies and Leslie and Pender Island.
Thanks, Mick.
Take care. Bye-bye.